Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Joel, we were talking before we got started about the power of saying no, and I'm finding that I'm having trouble saying no to my cat right now. So I just thought I'd throw that in.
Excellent.
It's a good starting point.
You'd think so.
In other words, I'm a legend in my own mind. Is that it?
There you go.
Okay, I get it. All right.
Anything's a good starting point.
This is true. With us, anything's a good starting point.
Yes.
But, well, actually, Jen came up with a general topic of talking about self-love, self-care, and self-criticism. That's my summary of it. She wrote the much more extended version, but it's a good topic. I would say it's actually a very poignant topic. People like to talk about, the great divide that's going on and all the chaos and crisis and terrible things happening and so forth. And I don't consider any of those things that they talk about to be all that big of a deal. I think a much bigger deal is what I might call, I'm not sure I'd call it a crisis, but let's just say a deluge of self-criticism.
Yes.
There's a lot of that going on and has been for quite some time. It's not new. It's more evident now, perhaps because of technology, but
and technology and social media sort of supports that in a lot of ways. And
yeah, right.
I noticed with it could be anyone, but particularly the younger generation, you'll see in their Instagram descriptives about I have borderline personality disorder, I have severe trauma, I am neurodivergent, and I am they give diagnosis and so there's an internal dialogue with a lot of people that is built on what's wrong with them.
Right.
And that's where that goes. And I'm not, anybody can say whatever they want about themselves, but when you understand the danger of that negative self-talk, or that things always fall apart for me, or I am really messed up and I have these diagnoses, and the concept for diagnosis, as you and I have talked before, it was never intended for the public to use diagnosis. They were there for doctors to be able to save time when they're describing to another doctor a set of problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it originally started out like, well, this person's bipolar. Then you don't have to explain for 2 hours. There's a mood swing attached to that. So the package of bipolar was between doctors.
Right.
Then insurance
between therapists. It became more of a therapist thing. But
therapists. I'm therapists, doctors, the professional side.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, insurance companies start saying, we love those diagnoses, so you must diagnose people and tell them what they're being diagnosed with. So then one of the worst things you can do, they're all bad, but any therapist that has a borderline personality disorder person is always scared to tell the person they think they have borderline personality disorder, because it is such a rough, it's probably one of the worst. Well, generally personality disorders are bad in general. They're not curable, they are treatable. And borderline personality disorder is a very rough diagnosis to have.
Oh yeah.
And
more of a rough life to have, really.
Very, very rough life. It is a very difficult thing. Most of it is derived from a really bad childhood, fear of abandonment. There's usually other things involved. So that internal dialogue, when you tell yourself all day, I'm a borderline personality disorder person, then you are. I am this, I am that. The narrative that goes with that becomes very damaging. So that self-talk that we talked about for so long is really the driving factor in people creating these bad scenarios, and the law of attraction responding to that energy. And that's to me, that's our biggest crisis right now. I don't know. You mentioned, everything's, I don't know what else is going on. Apparently a lot of shit's going on, but it's not my world, but it was just one of those things. I didn't know why, and I assumed it was because of all the political chaos, but I woke up this morning and the stock market and Bitcoin was way down. And so in my world, that's just the time to go buy some more. And by the end of the day, Bitcoin, I bought it at 92,000. I didn't buy a whole Bitcoin, but that was the price of Bitcoin when I bought it.
Right.
And by the end of the day, it's 102,000.
So I picked up 10% one
Yeah,
day. That's a
10%
good
a day,
return.
not bad. And I
Yeah.
don't even know what happened, but
I don't even know what happened. Yeah.
yeah, but it doesn't matter what happened. I just know I made 10% on my money in one day. That's good.
Interesting you mentioned that, because I had a conversation offline with a listener, and I won't get into it because it's her personal business, but the gist of the conversation was along the same line. What happens when you have an investment that goes down? And what she was literally asking for my advice. I said, well, I would do what Joel would do, because if Joel believes that if something's good enough to buy at price X, it's good enough to buy at price X minus 20.
Yeah, much more valuable. It's on, I just consider it on sale. It's a discount.
Yeah, and kind of a gift too, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a good thing. Well, there's actually another piece to this whole existential crisis, I guess you might call it, that we're talking about. To me, it's much more tame than something like, living a diagnosis that's been given to you. It's more along the lines of finding different ways to cut yourself down. It's being self-critical, something I know a little bit about because I did it a lot for quite a few years, and I did it very well. I was highly skilled at it, as you know. And when you develop that skill, it has this tendency to, like you said, play out law of attraction and make it real. Make it happen.
Yes.
The challenge is to stop the pattern. First of all, to recognize the pattern. That's a big one. It took me a few
Absolutely.
years. And then once you recognize the pattern, then, oh my God, now I got to stop this thing. It's like a runaway train at that point. What do? I'm so used to beating the crap out of myself. And we've made jokes about it. We talked about how, if we treat our best friends the way we treat ourselves, we wouldn't have best friends, that kind of thing. But in reality, when you're dealing with it, it takes a while to turn that momentum around, because that's the nature of momentum. Momentum is something that's hard to turn around. It takes a little doing. It takes some effort. It takes some change of behavior. It takes trial and error. It takes a bunch of things that you have to do to get there. I would say that certainly it's very bad that people are dealing with self-diagnoses and basically retrain themselves on having self-diagnoses as if that's their life. That's who they really are. That's their identity. That's definitely big. I would say it's even worse though, how many people are just kind of beating the crap out of themselves, because I think it's much more prevalent. I mean, what do you think? You see people all day long. What you think?
No, it is. I've done this for coming up on 30 years, and this is the worst time I've seen the overall narrative of the negative and all the stuff that goes on, the putting themselves down, not even diagnosable stuff, just the overall view is so pervasively negative, and it's just that and it's rewarded again through the reward's a weird term to use there, but the dopamine response to that is, a lot of times it's like it becomes a competition in your brain. Well, I'm so messed up, or there's no chance of this, or I'm inadequate here, or I can't do this, and it's so frustrating to hear people, because me, I'm programming to believe that everything's possible. You take everything's doable, and we can make anything happen.
Right.
And I believe that. And I live that. I live that in my life, and I help my clients live that. And when you change that pervasive undertone of negativity, you literally free a person to go do whatever they want to do. And there's so few people doing that right now. It's almost like it's too easy. When you start doing it, it's like, wow, is it really this easy? And it was like during the Depression. And then what was that, 1929 or something around there, whatever that was?
1930 predominantly, yeah.
Yeah. And so, the belief within there's no money, there's no jobs, there's no nothing. And that was 98% of the country believed that. They really believed it, and they lived it. And then, and people think that the stock market died and everybody jumped out windows. It didn't happen that way.
No, it didn't.
It was, the stock market died for a while, and everybody laughed. They kept buying more and all that thing, and then it just didn't come back, and then everything started crashing. It was a slow burn, but they accepted the reality that everything was falling apart. But yet the whole premise of the book, Think and Grow Rich, was written around people that got rich during the Depression,
Yeah,
or increased their wealth during the Depression, because they didn't accept that narrative. They looked at opportunity.
exactly. And they saw the opportunity and they grabbed it.
Yes. So
in fact, you mentioned people being out of work during that time, and there were about 20% of the population was out of work during that entire period.
yes.
What that gets overlooked is that 80% was employed.
Well,
We never talk about that.
And 80 cent was 80. There were so many ways to make money. I was reading this one young man's account of it during the Depression. He was like 14. His family had no money, and he literally, this was a great book. And if I think of the name of it, I'll send it to you. We need to talk about this book one day. And he was like 14 years old, and he went to his parents, and they're like, we got to really cut back. We've lost his dad lost his job. He goes, well, go get another one. He goes, well, son, that's just not that easy. And he's like, well, it seems like it would be. And they went back and forth. Well, the kid just started, he was brilliant. He looked at it like, what is it that nobody wants to do? So, so he started shoveling. He tells this great story. He started shoveling horse stalls for people. Right. And money back then was so different, but it's sort of like $1 a day or something.
Yeah.
But what he started doing was realizing now he has fertilizer that he was shoveling. So he connected with a guy who had a cart, and they were able to get cart, and they would deliver fertilizer for like $20 a cart. And so again, that was he built a business shoveling poop from horse, and it thrived, and that led him to other things. But he kept saying that the narrative of all of this was false, and he saw it was false. But when they tell the story of the Depression, 80% of the people were working. That was it's just, but yet all we talk about is the 20% that wasn't. And it was, they just lost the job they had. They didn't even, a lot of them were just stuck in the belief that everything, the market crashed, everything fell apart, our economy stagnant. But not for everybody.
And to be fair, there were a lot of people who did look for work and couldn't find work. I mean, it's not like it was easy to go out and find something to do. You had to be creative, like this one gentleman did.
Right. Yeah. There were traditional jobs were not. Yes, you weren't going to go get a traditional job because companies weren't hiring. But if you understood, there's an advantage to that too. There's an advantage to not having a traditional job. You look at where there's a need and go fill that need.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very key element of being an entrepreneur, actually. Is
yes, absolutely.
After you've identified it instead of before you identify it. That's a classic mistake, by the way. Another one I know real well.
Yes.
But I want to also talk about something that I think ties into the modern version of this beat myself up epidemic we've got going on. I think there's a large chunk of it that occurs in the name of self-help. In other words, more and more people are now aware that they need to work on themselves. They need to grow themselves. They need to build themselves. They need to heal themselves. There's a variety of different ways of looking at it, but they understand they need to work on themselves. What's really fascinating to me is how they choose to go about doing it. They choose to work on themselves by beating the crap out of themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right? Because that's what they know.
That's all they know.
That's what they were taught.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. That's the way most public education is structured. That's the way any kind of education is structured, is based on pointing out what's wrong. And we're going to say, this is wrong. This has to be fixed. Blah, 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 blah. It is almost never about what's it take to be in a good space. What's it take to be in a good mindset? Never about that.
Well, and when you get so stuck in, the premise of identifying why I am so down, I am so beaten down. Here's all the things, and you start the dialogue. And I'm not anti-therapy, obviously,
sure,
but I am anti getting stuck in therapy. I am anti, just that constant. To me, I think there needs to be what happened. How do we remedy that? The number one thing you can do on any given day is work toward feeling better. Change your perspective. Look toward happiness, movement, activity, action. Those are things that defeat any condition. And we will have people go, oh no, you don't understand, y'all. It's I think I've told you the story. I was on a radio show a long time ago with this lady, and we were talking about it was about depression and people that pull themselves out of depression. And
Mm.
I was just sharing my story, and she was the host of the show, and she was very, she obviously had been dealing with a lot. And as I was describing how I pulled myself out of depression, and she's like, well, no, you're missing. She wanted me to talk about what medication I used and what.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, no, I didn't use medication. I tried all the medications; they didn't do anything. But I got to the gym, I took action, I did those things. She said, well, you didn't have real depression then. I said, oh, okay, well, yeah, thank you. I appreciate your diagnosis.
That's a great example, though. That's a great example of what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Because your depression wasn't good enough for her.
It was not the flavor or brand of depression she wanted to represent.
Yeah.
It was
inadequate, really. I mean, she said you weren't depressed.
Yeah. And so I believe in a lot, and I'm also, I'm the first to tell you, it could be, there are people who really do need antidepressants. There are people that really have a malfunctioning brain. So I'm not saying those things don't exist.
Right.
But I'm also saying there's no depression in the world that's not helped by taking action, by working out and doing things on top of it. It really angers people up for some reason to bring that up, and because they're almost defending their disability or their stuckness.
Yeah, I'll take that a step further, because I know in my own case, I was taking action, but I was taking action with a contrary mindset.
Yes.
And that's going to be just as toxic as trying to, attract by sitting on your couch. It's just not going to work out really well. It's going to play out badly. So you really have to have both. You have to have a creative and positive mindset, and you have to take action that is consonant with it, that's in alignment with it, in harmony with it, if you will.
Absolutely, and that's the point. When you have the right mindset and take empowered action with that, that's going to be the remedy most of the time. Yeah. And having in fact, I have it to a place. I just, I take what I call unhinged action. I just go do something, and it works out amazingly because I'm expecting it to work out no matter what I do.
Yes. I wish there was some way to make that statement in bold letters when you're talking on a podcast like this.
Yeah.
Because that's the key statement right there.
Yes.
Just that wording right there.
Yes.
Says it.
Yeah.
And yet somehow it's just saying it doesn't do it for
until you live it, it's people have to dismiss it because it doesn't sound. I can't describe how powerful that is. How and me. I don't claim to. I didn't stumble on this immediately and say, "Oh, it worked perfectly." It's been a lot of years of work and research and understanding how it.
Pain too. It's struggle, suffering sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I've got when I really realized, once you become sort of powerful in this process, any action yields results always. It could be, let's flip a coin. What does the coin want us to do? And that action is going to work. I jokingly at one of my friends, when she wants to go have dinner or we go do something, or kids want to go do something, we'll just do heads or tails. And and it's like, okay, and it always works. It's always fantastic. It's just one of those in life I've used. Should I do this or this? Well, let's do this. Okay, it always worked out. The other way would have worked out too, by the way. That's the secret.
Yes. Well, the secret is that the mindset said it was going to work out.
That's the point. Yeah.
Which is the hardest concept, really. That is a very difficult concept. It flies in the face of everything that we've been taught from the youngest age, that your mindset's actually going to change the result. I actually had a conversation with a very closed-minded individual that lasted about 3 minutes, maybe not even that long, very recently, in which he literally laughed at the idea that I proposed to him, that if you change your mindset, the circumstances will change around you. He thought that was the silliest idea he ever heard. Awesome. There's an expression of what we're talking about here, how we literally are trained to believe that's not possible. That can't happen. That's just a bunch of BS.
Yeah, I get it. I used to believe that. And
me too.
The concepts for me of really understanding that your perspective creates your reality and you're in charge of your perspective. That sounds, again, insane to the average person that doesn't understand that.
Oh yeah.
You know,
And,
people say,
and
well,
the more resistant you are, the more insane it's going to sound, by the way.
oh yeah, yeah. People say, well, Joel, you just don't understand what I'm going through, and I might not understand what they're going through, but I still believe the solution is within that.
I've also learned the hard way that when someone has a closed mind and they express that opinion, and you come back to them with some statement to the effect of, "Well, you're the common denominator in all of it." It's a great way to get somebody really angry at you very
Oh
fast.
yeah, yeah. One of the things that I enjoy, I post stuff, pretty much every day about various things, and I get people biting back at me with when I say you are both the solution and the cause of everything that bothers you.
Oh yeah, that'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, they do not like that, and I am not that. Yeah, well, you are. So sorry.
Well, you are. Sorry. I love
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't matter, but you don't believe me, but I don't need you to believe me. It's not
Yeah.
when you realize that the the words victim shaming, or you're not, you don't have the right empathy. I've been through a lot of stuff, and I lost a son in a car wreck. I've been through addiction. I've been in jail. I've been homeless. I've had all those things, and the remedy to all of them. And when I say the remedy, when the loss of my son, me dealing with him,
Right.
I did that with the law of attraction. I spent 98% of my thoughts after the first week after he passed away was solely focused on the joy he brought to my life, not the lack of him not being here.
Right.
That changed everything.
It does change everything, and it's not easy to do.
No. I
Say
mean, my
that
son
it
was
is. It's
the
not
reality.
easy,
I
but
had
it's
people.
doable.
Yeah.
It's doable. It can be done.
Yeah. Well, I've had people say, well, you're in denial. I said, no, I know he's dead. I know he is. I understand that. I completely do. I'm not in denial. I'm not bargaining with you. I'm simply saying he brought such joy to my life. We laughed all the time. One of the greatest gifts I've ever been given was the honor of being his father. And I focus on that, and that lifts me up. Yes, I miss him. His birthday is coming up at the end of this month. I will definitely miss him. I miss him a lot, but it doesn't mean that I will ever get away from focusing on what he brought, the power he brought, the ability we had to make each other laugh. And he was a very literal child. So, and I'm a very sarcastic person, and that alone would have been a sitcom. Just
Absolutely.
because,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you shared some of that sitcom, and it's hysterical.
it is hilarious. So yeah, and I'm using that as an example. But I went to jail. Yes, I had an addiction. Yes, all those things are real. And I became the solution to all of that when I realized I was the problem for all of that.
Have you noticed something that I've noticed it, and I guess I'm looking for some validation to see if I'm on the right track here. I think I am, but I could be wrong. I noticed that the people who use the phrase victim shaming the most are themselves unwittingly shaming victims.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I probably have, but I haven't paid attention to that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that would be you. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, anybody that's going to defend their mental illness, or defend their diagnosis, or defend the idea against there's a solution. When people say my mental condition is incurable, it's like, it's not incurable. It really isn't. It's the brain can change. It can literally mold into a new brain. One of the controversial things that I said, I wasn't able to say this for years, because a lot of the work, not so much, I'm not working as much in addiction as I did 10 years ago, even. Still work with a lot of addiction, but I work with a lot of other things too.
Right.
And the one change is, and I believe this with all my heart, that Alcoholics Anonymous, 12-step programs in general, once you're an addict, you're always an addict. It never changes, is their stance. And
that points to what I was talking about. To me, that's a form of shaming.
It is. And I say, absolutely, I disagree with that. I have a different brain. I'm in recovery for, August will be 30 years from a gambling addiction. And I don't have the same brain I have now. Now, Will I go to Vegas and take $1 million? No, I'm not going to do that just to prove. I don't need to go test it. I don't need to challenge it. But I sincerely, with all my heart, have a different brain. I have no desire to gamble. It doesn't intrigue me. In fact, it sort of sickens me because of what it did. I will never. I would never do that. But there's people that don't like that. Now, I tell people all the time, I'm not suggesting that you can start drinking away right away. You need your brain to change. Every cell in your body changes over at least a maximum of 7 years. So you need a couple of cycles behind that to make sure that's gone. But you do the right things for 14 years and get your life together. I hope you don't go back to drinking because it doesn't really serve a point, but it's not going to be because you're an alcoholic. It's going to be because of the belief system that you're still there.
And that's a very controversial thing to say, but I totally agree with you.
And
I totally agree with you.
I have another controversial thing, which, I love the controversial. I know several people, well-known, some nationally known people that have been in recovery for 25 or 30 years from alcohol. And one lady in particular, I think she has 50 years, which is phenomenal. She's a doctor. And she keeps a bottle of Jack Daniels in her pantry for guests.
Okay.
She doesn't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
She goes out to dinner every now and then. She'll have a glass of wine. She doesn't tell everybody that. But her brain's different. She hasn't drank for 50 years. A glass of wine isn't going to send her in a stupor and do that. But again, it's a narrative that's not talked about. And I don't want to get in the fight with the recovery community. But I think one of the problems with the recovery community is by telling a 17-year-old boy who has been drinking a little too much that you can never drink for the rest of your life and you'll always be an alcoholic is not an effective treatment standard.
Well, it's basically setting an impossible standard.
Exactly. And I work on, let's don't drink for now. Let's get through this. Let's get your brain right. Let's not worry about a long deadline there. Let's not talk about forever. Let's talk about for right now. You're gonna have a different brain down the road, but right now you definitely don't need to be drinking right now. We can agree on that. And then we'll worry about the future later.
And by the way, the reason I said that it's an impossible standard is that it's a standard that programs the brain to say that you are a failure.
Yeah.
You have failed and that's all you can ever be, and you can never stop being a failure.
When one of the problems, and again, it's Walt at LOAtoday.net for complaints.
I so much appreciate how you always just
yeah. If you want to complain about Joel's opinions, but since we're about to go into a deeper hole, the concept, just like you're saying, the narrative that I am broken, I am always broken, I will be broken forever, is part of that dysfunctional way of thinking. It is the concept, the truth, the real truth. If you really want to understand how this really worked out, because AA has changed history. Bill Wilson was one of the founders of AA, and he was very much a believer in using LSD as a tool to help with it. Yes, he was. They have whitewashed that. He actually said the steps of recovery were he tells us white light experience. He was tripping on acid when he got the steps of recovery.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, they don't like that because they delete.
Well, it ruins the narrative. Yeah.
It ruins the narrative. But it was this entirely different thing. I like to empower people. I like to, if the only thing that I cannot do for the rest of my life is not gamble, those are the areas I want to look at. Let's not focus on, every week, I can't gamble, I can't gamble, I can't gamble. You just keep reinforcing what that is. What can I do? I can work out, I can go change jobs, I can go to school. There's a million things I can do to improve my life that will definitely make it less likely for me to practice my addiction down the road.
And more importantly, it won't keep programming your mind to be afraid of going off the wagon, of making that one mistake, of going off and doing the thing that you swore you were never going to do, because that's what you're really setting yourself up for when you keep repeating the same narrative over and over again. I am an alcoholic, I am a drug abuser, I am this, I am that. Yeah, well, you keep doing that often enough, you're going to believe it, and you're going to believe that any false step is something to be afraid of, which means you're constantly in fear. You're never living in parasympathetic. You're always living in what they call, I don't know why they call it the sympathetic nervous system. There's nothing sympathetic about it.
Yeah, so I got a 30-minute answer you don't want to hear, but you're right.
Okay. But you get my point. I mean,
Yes,
that,
yes.
that's where it puts you. It puts you in a state of continual fear that you're going to screw up.
If you want, I work with a couple of NFL kickers, and if you want to screw up an NFL kicker, have him think, "Don't miss this kick. Don't miss this kick."
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and he misses it. It's just, they're the kickers and golfers are the two most mental participants, and that it really takes mental focus for those two.
Oh, yeah.
And you watch an NFL kicker miss a kick left, he'll almost always make the next one or kick the next one right. He overcompensates, he overthinks, and those are all factors that are incredibly lost on the average person, because the mindset is so powerful. What's your belief system? If you believe these things about yourself, they are self-fulfilling. That's your reality. If you believe you can't do this or you can't do that, that is self-fulfilling.
You're talking about kickers, place kickers in the NFL. And it reminds me, you also mentioned golf. That's what cued it in my mind. It reminds me of a scene from a movie called The Greatest Game Never Played. And in this movie, the lead protagonist approaches a par 3 hole, and he does it with a negative mindset. And the way that they demonstrate that for you is they show you what the hole looks like from his perspective. And from his perspective, you see the hole, and it just kind of zooms away from him at about 500 yards out. So it's this little tiny thing off in the distance.
Yeah.
It's a great way to illustrate just what that mindset is like. Doesn't matter how close the thing is, it seems like it's a million miles away.
Yeah. One of the things that when I work with NBA players, one guy in particular was having a lot, and I don't coach the mechanics of the game. I just talk about mental techniques. And he was a really good free throw shooter, and he was having a slump, and he started thinking about the slump. And so every time he would go there, so his free throws were. So I said, I said, so after you make your free throw, who is the person you're covering? Because they fall back into coverage and defense like that way. He goes, well, yeah. I said, so forget that you're making the free throw, but I want you to hyper focus on where that guy is. Find him, look at that, get right on him, block him from the ball. And he goes, well, I do that. But I said, no, I want that to be your obsession. And it worked, because he quit focusing on missing the basket. And he kept looking where this guy was. He made the basket, and then making the basket became the automatic. And then the biggest event was finding where this guy was.
And that was a really powerful thing to do with a professional basketball player, because free throws are all muscle memory for them.
Yes.
There's really no thought process in it. It's from shooting thousands and thousands and thousands.
But when they pull away from the subconscious programming, where it's pre-programmed for thousands, hundreds of thousands of shots, but when they get into, I'm about to miss this shot, now they're in the front part of the brain, which is slow and all over the place and emotional, and you lose that mechanic. So so I try to restore the mechanics by getting them out of that part of the brain. I want the focus to be, where are you going next? Now, get there quick. They're going to inbound the ball to him. Let's go try to steal that ball. Let's look at that. Get more focused on the other person.
So let's take this concept, because I think this is an excellent concept. Let's apply it to the scenario I described earlier, the scenario of the person who repeatedly beats himself up by trying to work on himself.
Yes.
Okay, let's show that person how to get out of that mindset that they're in and change the mindset.
Well, we would need some information about what's making this happen, but let's just do a general overall thing.
Invent a trigger. It doesn't even matter what it is. Let's pretend there's a particular trigger.
Yeah, if somebody lost his job and they started narrative of, oh my God, I've lost this job. I'm terrible at this. I won't be able to find another job. Well, that becomes their most pervasive thought. And They, you know, oh, every time they fill out an application, nobody's responding to me, you know, nobody. So what set of actions can we take to adjust that? Well, first of all, you know, you held a job. What's your strength? What was good about the job? What was good about the job performance? Let's do an inventory of what was right with what you were doing. What did you like about the job? What didn't you like about the job? So our new job we're going to look for is going to have less of that. Here's a good example of that. So I have a young man who has severe ADHD.
Okay.
Almost as bad as mine, that wackiness, you know? And so he would get, but his dad was always in banking. And so he went to school, he graduated school, did fine in school, but then he lost 3 or 4 banking jobs because he was solely focused on getting into banking, which requires a lot of tedious reading and inputs.
Yeah.
And he wasn't ever getting his stuff done because he was so distracted. So after about the 3rd banking job he lost is when I started working with him. He had such a negative internal dialogue. I'm useless. I'm not smart. I go, you're very smart, but we need a job that matches how your brain operates. You're the part of the job you were doing well with the banking was the part that matched. He's very outgoing. He's great with people. The follow up with the paperwork, same thing. Same thing with me with insurance years ago and working with that. I was great at selling insurance. I was terrible about the detail-oriented stuff on the other side.
Right.
So we started work. So he found a job where it's working with this company and it incorporates. First of all, they work with real high-end technology, top secret stuff. So don't know exactly what it is, but what he's required to do is he places the order. And then he is required, because it's so top secret, to go sign that piece of equipment out. Sometimes these are $20 million piece of equipment. And then he carefully transports it to where the secured carrier is going to pick it up. So the piece that he liked then is followed by movement, which the ADHD brain likes that. So it's he's not sitting at a desk all day. He's at a desk for about 25% of the time. Then he's putting this, and he's thriving. They love him. He's fantastic. He has great memory of all this stuff. He's able to know, and because we have now tapped into all the resources he has, instead of focusing on, yes, if I were to be given a computer job where I'm inputting data all day, 40 hours a week, how long, you know me pretty well, how long will I last at that job? Seriously, Walt, what do you think? A day?
I would have said maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'd have said, screw it, out of here. No way, I can't do it. And
I mean, if you did 10 minutes, I'd applaud you, really.
yeah, I would have had to fight for 10 minutes, but yeah, I would. And you know me well enough, I never would have taken the job. But you get my point. So, you know, when you get in these things, it's like it's catastrophic thinking that starts. It's a cascade effect. I am all of these things because I lost that job. In reality, you just had the absolute worst job for your brain type, or taking somebody who is an extremely introverted person, is very detail oriented, and just doesn't like to talk to people, and then putting them as a salesman in a car dealership. Yeah. They're going to fail.
They're going to get triggered every 3 seconds.
Yeah. And so you got to look at the situation, the scenario. We don't throw everything out. We look at what is working, what matches our brain type. These are all important factors as we look at all of this. And you know how your brain operates. You know what you're able to do. I know how my brain operates. I figured out how to do very well in life doing the advantages of my brain. I don't, I hire people to do the stuff I'm terrible at, and I go do the stuff I love. That's it.
It's interesting you say that, because I've been giving a lot of thought lately being defined over the last couple of years, but especially in the last few months, to the fact that my brain works really well at telling other people, here, you get to go do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a while to figure out that I'm good at that, but I'm really good at that.
Well, that's great.
In fact, the more that I can give a job away to somebody, the better I am at it.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
I had a really cool encounter today as I was going in to get my I guess it would be lunch today. Yeah, lunch. And so I'm walking, and there's this young African American male, nice young man. He said, "Excuse me, sir," and I said, "Okay, what can I do for you?" And he said, "I just want to be honest with you." He said, "I literally," he showed me the paper. "I literally just got out of jail, and I don't have anywhere to go, and I don't want to go back. And do you have $1 or so? I'm trying to raise enough money to maybe get a hotel room and figure out what my next plan is." And I said, "Yeah, I have some money." And I just talked to him a little bit. I said, you're not going to believe this, but I've been in your position. I had nowhere to go. I've done that. So we talked for a little while, and so I gave him $50, and I said, that's all I had. And I said, what I really encourage you to do, I said, here, I gave the name of a guy. I said, he could put you to work tomorrow. He'll put you to work. Tell him Joel sent you.
Wow.
He'll come pick you up. He'll put you to work tomorrow.
That's big for somebody who's just out of jail.
Yeah. And I said, just all you're going to need to do is say, Joel said call. He's not going to ask any questions. In fact, he'll know you've been to jail because Joel said call. And, go and you bust your ass. You just work all you can, and then figure out a way to make side jobs and do that. Here's my business card. You can call me in a month if you stick with that job for a month, and then I'll give you your next step. If you do that, you can get there. Or you can just go take the $50 and go buy some drugs if that's what your plan is. I'm good either way. But and he goes, I'll call you in a month. I said, I hope you do, but either way, I'm good. And I said, you got to change this way of thinking. This is time. You got to get going. And whatever narrative you had, there is something on the other side. But you can't get out of jail and have the right mindset if you don't start taking action immediately. So
that's critical, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope he calls that guy and shows up tomorrow for work. So
that'd be wonderful.
I called the guy and I said, yeah. He said, I'll get him we'll get him there.
That's fantastic too, that you have a contact like that. You can hand him off instantly like that. I mean, I wouldn't even know where I would point somebody to go to if I encountered something like that. I just don't have that available to me that I can.
Well, that's sort of what I do having connections like that. And these jobs are generally labor jobs. They're not great jobs, but it's a job tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's cool stuff. But what's even more cool is that you're showing us how to help somebody else who is in a self-defeating mindset to overcome their self-defeating mindset. Now, what I'd like to address even more is, how do you do it within yourself? Let's say you're somebody who doesn't have a Joel nearby, and you just got out of jail, and he needs to figure stuff out, or something along that line, something where he has lots of different ways and reasons to beat the crap out of himself, and he knows he needs to overcome that, but he isn't sure how to go about doing it. And he knows from experience that his tendency is, no matter what he does, if he tries to work on himself, he's just going to beat himself up some more.
Yeah. Well, one of the first steps is to realize everything I've done before is not working. Period. It's not working. So let's establish that. So minimally, let's minimally do the exact opposite of what I've been doing before. Let's start with that.
Okay.
And, I've always done this. The idea, most people that get in these situations, they're looking for get rich quick, a lot of money fast. Say, I need to really get my brain right, and I'm gonna start by finding any job, whatever that job is. It's the crappiest job. First job is whatever it is, with the mindset that I'm looking for the second job. I'm also going to, I need to eat well. If I don't have any money, I need to find resources, get food stamps. Just go out and attack it. Let's create a life. And what you do find, like this young man, I like to look at this other side, this young man I ran into today. What are the odds of him running into me outside of a restaurant at the exact moment I'm in? And I'm talking about me because of me in particular. I'm sure other people gave him money, but I gave him the answer. And so I know it's going to work because the universe placed him right there at that time.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, we have gotten to the point now, having talked about law of attraction so much, that we feel very relaxed about it. But boy, there's a great example of it was just laid out right there.
I mean, the timing that he's walking by when I'm pulling up, and you know, and I said, look, I've slept in a flower bed. I've eaten out of a trash can. I've been to jail, and that's my car now. So, you know, we're okay. I'm okay. It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so if people don't have that out there, it's just you start looking at what are people doing to make money? What are people doing to get by? You start looking at what's working for people. You start, you know, you go out there and identifying, number one, not working. What is the opposite of that? What I've been doing? Let's start with that. What is the opposite? Most people don't want to go get the boring job and do that, but you understand there's a process within that will lead. I'm not about going to work for McDonald's for the next 30 years. That's not what I'm saying.
No,
But McDonald's for a month or two, I'm good. Yeah. Let's get something going. There's benefits. This one guy told me his plan a while back. He said he went to work at Waffle House cooking, learn how to be a cook, and they allowed him 2 meals a day. Well, he was basically homeless and living in a sober living home. So not only was he getting paid a wage, it wasn't a great wage, but he was getting paid a wage. But he got 2 meals a day, which turned out to be as many meals as he wanted a day, you know, because nobody, you know. And so he took food off the table. He was able to eat semi-healthy, well, probably not Waffle House, but he was able to eat. And, you know, able to do that. Plus, he started building restaurant experience. A Waffle House chef is not a gourmet chef, but if you can handle the pressure of Waffle House, if you know what goes on at Waffle House at 2 a.m. on a Friday morning, you got a work experience. I mean, you got life experience. Waffle House is lit at 2 in the morning. It's crazy. Look up the YouTube videos, Waffle House overnight. Are you familiar with that, Walt?
I am not. No.
There's a whole world you got to go look at. What Waffle House about 1 in the morning transforms into a zoo. There's fights. It's hilarious.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I had no idea it was his place to be.
Oh, it is. I was there one night driving from Florida back up to Virginia, and I stopped at one about 3 in the morning, just me. This massive fight took place, and I just kept eating and observing.
That's crazy.
Nobody messed with me. I just sat there and ate my food.
Well, nobody would mess with you anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was just this amazing time. So what you do is, you know, we're looking for hope. You're looking for hope in any direction. Hope is the most powerful source when you're at that place. If you can find hope or a belief that there's a possibility you could do this, and then we start reprogramming, we start looking, we start listening, and we weren't here to be mediocre. We weren't here to be homeless and poor and depressed and all that. That's not why we're here. A lot of us get there, but that's not why we're here. There's a way out. If you believe your reality, then you have bought into what's going on. I believe the reality I have today, and it works really well for me.
Which is fabulous.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
You may remember about 2 months ago, something like that, I had a guest on, Matthew Lesko. Do you remember Matthew Lesko? He used to do yes, I do remember. Yeah. And he was a fun interview. He was a really fun interview. But one of the things he shared during that interview was a website that you can go to that basically allows you to search on anything that could possibly be in your area that would be helpful if you need help on something.
Right.
You don't have enough money, you don't have a place to live, you don't have a job, you have to fill in the blank. Because that was his gig. His gig was, he used to sell a book that was all about all the different ways the government gives away money.
Right.
And you could, for $20 at that time, you could get this big manual and all the different places you could go. Well, now with the internet, that really has gone by the by. But what he pointed out is that internet has made it possible for people to have access. All they have to do is get to a local public library or something that's got an internet connection and do a lookup, and they can find resources to help them. So even if you don't know anybody, if you never ran into a Joel Elston who's been through the same thing you have, and you're coming out of a dire situation, the help is out there.
Yep. Well, one of my strategies is you go to the library, go to the internet, go search, go whatever there is. There's listen, look. I told a guy that one day, I said, look, step one. This is a different guy. Step one, get a job. Step two, go to the library and listen to Bob Proctor videos all day.
Oh yeah.
And change your everything, your narrative, change it all, and you'll change your life. And it's there. There's always those solutions out there. We no matter what is going on in the world, and there's apparently a lot going on in the world right now. But
So you've heard.
we have within us a base amount of a base guidance system to be happy, to be fulfilled, to have an abundance. The law of attraction is not emotional. It doesn't care if you have money or if you're poor. It doesn't. It just responds to your belief system. That's all it can do. That's how you feel. That's all it can respond to. And if you bring that strong belief system and you really believe it, and you take, and for me, as you know, I always say, the belief system has to have matching action.
It does.
And then I can't imagine. It has to work.
It always will. Yeah. It's interesting how we try to reinvent the wheel, though. I can say that because I did that myself. I kept trying to reinvent the wheel, and each time I tried to reinvent the wheel, I would either take action without being in the right mindset, or I'd take mindset without being in the right action.
Yes.
What I mean, and on those rare occasions where I would combine the two together, something magical would happen. And I think that's probably the main reason why it takes a while.
Well, it does. And, to be able to align your mindset, your belief system, and the action without that negative, if you're walking in believing you're going to fail, you've just wasted the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Even though you don't know it.
Right. No, but you got to be able to go in with the matching action, matching the mindset, and be able to go in and, put that energy there. Work your way up in a company. Do whatever you got to do. There's everybody's individuality sort of prohibits me from saying this is exactly what you need to do. These are concepts,
right?
And you have to hone this to your personality. I'm not suggesting you go do a job you can't do because of ADHD or introversion or those other things. But I do believe that in the beginning, you have to start somewhere, and it doesn't really matter where. Just get something going.
I think that there's a really important piece here, because we touched on how it's very easy when we're in these tough places to not be in alignment between mindset and action.
Yes.
And yet ultimately being in alignment with both, that's when good things are going to happen.
Absolutely.
And I think that the real lesson here, because we often talk about how it just seems to take forever, or it takes a long time sometimes for us to retrain that brain. And it's because we spend a lot of our time in the out of alignment stuff.
Yes.
So here's the interesting takeaway. Just by trying over and over again, this is where persistence really pays off. Just by trying different approaches, different ways of combining them together and so forth, over and over again, at some point you stumble on both of them being in alignment with each other. At some point you do that, even if it's by accident.
Yes.
So that to me is the great benefit of, well, just take one more piece of action, because you don't necessarily know that you're going to be in alignment. Ideally you would be. That would be great if you were.
Yes.
But if you're in a bad place, you don't know you're going to be in alignment. In fact, I would even say odds are against you. But just by trying stuff again and again and again and again, at some point you're going to try something in alignment and it's going to work.
Absolutely. Yes.
That is, am I wrong? Is that that's the biggest reason why you keep taking action?
Yeah. I'm the action guy. Action.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, because you're the expert.
Yeah. Action. You just keep taking, wake up with a bias toward action. That's my mindset. If you don't know what to do anything, do something, wash your dishes, take the garbage out, go help the neighbor shovel the snow, whatever it is, take some type of action to get things going, prime the well. It is sitting on your ass and worrying about things that will deliver the exact opposite of what you're wanting.
Otherwise known as sitting on your assets. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No. I wasn't remonstrating. I wasn't saying you were wrong.
Yeah. But all kidding aside, that's it. It's, we that action belief, like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, anything is better than nothing. Anything. take a walk down in Richmond. They have this area, it's called Cary Street. There's a bunch of restaurants out there. A guy lived near there, and we were talking one day. So I've tried everything. I can't get a job. I said, there's restaurants up and down Cary Street. There's burger places. Just go in each restaurant and ask, are you hiring? And he said, but they all say apply online. I said, just ignore that. Walk up, ask somebody at the bar, are you guys hiring? And I don't care how many no's you get, keep doing that. He stopped by 10 restaurants, all told him to go apply online, and they'll get back to him. The 11th restaurant said, look, I had a guy just quit, and I just need help, like busboy help. Okay, you're hired if you'll do that now. And he did. He eventually worked his way up, learned how to be a server, did pretty well, went on to get another job. But he took action, and he on his 11th try, his 11th action that day yielded a job, which eventually yielded a promotion, which eventually led him to be able to get into another field, which was more lucrative. But it all started with that going and taking action.
And I'm willing to bet, I mean, it's not part of your story, it's not directly part of the narrative, but I'm willing to bet that 11th place he walked into, for some reason, he decided to try that one a little differently in some way. There was something about his manner, the way he said it, the way he approached the counter. There was something that was different. And that difference was the difference between being in alignment and out of alignment.
Completely.
And it's easy to miss that because, well, first of all, you didn't include it in the story. I don't blame you. Why would you? You don't know what it is. It's kind of hard to include it in the story if you don't know what it is.
Right.
But the point is that's what makes it so challenging to understand this stuff. Very often we don't see what it is. Very often we're not aware of it, but it's always there.
But that's the law of attraction puts it takes everything. Action puts everything in play. You'll never understand the events that happen. You'll never understand what took place to get there. You'll never understand all the factors.
Right.
It's the action that you can let all that go. You don't have to get stuck on all that. It's just once you get going and you believe in it, it works. I told you a couple weeks ago, I think, I don't want to know how it works. Don't care. I actually literally don't want to know how it works.
Especially if we're bringing quantum mechanics.
Yeah, God, no. Nobody knows. Yeah.
I only do that if I want to give Joel a headache, and I don't want to give him a headache.
Yeah, no.
Good though. Good summary here. I like the way we tie this together. It's once again a topic that, as with most of our topics, they're very simple on the surface, and then we do these deep dives, and it turns out they're not quite as simple as we originally thought. There's a lot of depth to all of them. And
absolutely.
This is another one. So thank you for another deep dive. It was fun.
It was fantastic, my friend. I hope everybody has a great week.
I hope the same thing as well. And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.